Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, my name is Nicole, and I work at Mozilla as a staff designer. And this is a question I ask myself quite frequently, how to keep the flame alive. So today I want to talk about this question. And I'm here to chat about a few ideas I had around that topic, how to keep the flame alive, why storytelling and brand are key to open source, and how to get started eventually. So, yeah, let me tell you a story. So, once upon a time, I mean, this is how all good stories start, I hope. So, once upon a time, I went to places and they all looked like this one. I actually went to one that looked like this yesterday, or they looked like this. And, maybe you know these places as well. And maybe you also go there and talk to the friendly barista, and you get your flat white, and it's all very pleasant and nice and expected, but they all feel strangely familiar. All the places look the same, right? They follow this neat color scheme. It's white, it's all caps, they have plants, they have concrete, there is wood. So how can that actually be? So welcome to airspace. So this is actually a concept that was coined by Kyle Chaika, journalist, 10 years ago already. And he noticed, okay, airspace describes like this look of modern cafes, of Airbnbs, this is where the name is coming from, of co-working places around the world that all feel so similar. They are super clean, they are minimal, they are Instagram friendly, and people just know what to expect when they show up there. So I was wondering, what are we losing if really everything looks the same? Maybe it's good, maybe it isn't. But maybe it's this, people are always and never at home. So, you feel good, you know what's coming, it's very familiar, but it's also not very cozy. It doesn't offer anything you feel attached to or you love. It's just like very generic. And this quote here is from French anthropologist Marc Auger, who describes this phenomenon, and he talks more about, transient places like airports, highways, shopping malls, more like impersonal stuff that lack any historical or contextual qualities. So, to exaggerate a little bit, it's like being stuck at the airport. I mean, it's a nice cafe, and it feels much more curated, and it's very pleasant, but nevertheless, it's pretty much rootless. It could be anywhere, right? So, and maybe you know that feeling too, right? Maybe you, not necessarily like the airport feeling, but the cafes. I saw some of you nodding. So, but maybe you also know that from a very different context. Let's say all the apps that you have on your phone, or like the websites you visit. There's a sense of copy and paste. Everything looks strangely the same. So, what's the problem here? So the problem for me is that it's nice, it's pleasant, but it's also pretty dead. So, and it's hard to identify with something that is so very empty at its core. Or to put it in other words, so this is from a science fiction book called The Three-Body Problem from Liu Zhuqin. Have we succeeded? The princeps asked, is that the proton unfolded into 2 dimensions? Yeah, maybe, right? So I feel like everything is flattening. Everything is getting pretty much flat. So where did we lose the fun, right? And yes, it's Comic Sans, but actually not much beats its readability. It has a bit of a bad reputation, but, it's a good one. So, maybe it's the numbers, stupid. So everything looks and feels the same because everyone is optimizing, right? Everybody's looking for the numbers, and it's optimized for efficiency but not cultural meaning. So everything is flattening out. And Rem Koolhaas, an architect, put it nicely. So it's not just, a lot of people see that in different areas, architecture and so on. So he said, if we simply let cyberspace run its course to a future determined by Silicon Valley, those libertarian-minded engineers will paradoxically lead us to cities shackled by algorithmic conformity. It would be a neural network, yes, but one that operates in lockstep. So the same phenomenon we might see in digital also happens in the cafes, also happens in the cities. So what now, right? Picture of a hungry cat. I want to use that moment as a bit of a break, because for me this feels a bit like preaching to the choir. You all work in open source, you all know how important the community is, you all know how important diversity and openness is, and to just, the pluralism, to make it colorful, to invite everybody in, and to look outside of the boundaries. So I'm just here to, just start this conversation, probably have more questions than answers, but it's okay. I would love to, start a conversation with you all and entangle this together. And now I want to move us from meat space into cyberspace, which are both very funny words. So, we are all familiar with these tools and frameworks. They make all our lives easier. I'm a designer, so maybe I put something there that doesn't quite make sense to you, but I was like, it seems popular. So, makes some of that stuff really makes my life better, more efficient. But all these tools have decisions built in, assumptions, right? And I'm not even talking about all the large language models and the new tools that we have coming in. And it makes my life easier, but I also give away agency. It makes a lot of decisions. We use the Figma libraries and follow Apple's Humans Interface guidelines or material design, React, Next.js, Node.js, Tailwind CSS. All you have colors, everything predefined, and that's good. But it's not just the frameworks we use. It's also how everything looks, right? Every app has a feed. It seems the default. It's the endless scrolls. There are the little cards. Everything has a like and a share and a save. And the algorithm defines what's on the top and what's at the bottom. Lots of decisions that are taken for me from someone. And all of that is optimized to suck me in. Just wants my attention. And if you look at that, everything looks basically the same. You're like, okay, if you use these apps every day, you're like, oh, that's whatever, LinkedIn or something, right? But if you don't know, you're like, I don't know, could be anything, right? Also, onboarding, it's very standardized. You have the 3 to 5 cards, you can swipe them, and then you have the value prop, whatever company it is, and they ask you for permission. In the worst case, they make you log in. Maybe you just stop using it right then. But it's a very ritualized entry. And that's not adapted to the audience or anything. It's just oh, everybody's doing it. Okay, let's do it too, right? I mean, it's not bad. But is it good? I'm not sure. Right? So it feels a bit like the pull of the average. Everyone does it, everyone is copying it, and instead of just taking a step back and do I need onboarding right now? Is that the right moment? Should I do it now? Even the fun is standardized, right? People are like, oh wow, we need more fun, and then confetti shows up. So yeah, I mean, I've been there too. I also added some confetti somewhere. And a few more. So, all the apps have to have these very minimal, safe UIs. They have the neutral backgrounds, the little cards, the corners go from round to not so round, a few years later again round. They have their subtle shadows, they have their sans serif fonts, and everything feels the same. You know, even our engagement, it's gamified. You always feel like you got to push notification, you got to close all the rings, you gotta, you know, you can't break that streak. It's always ongoing. And last but not least, this makes the experience feel really flat. It's like driving on the Autobahn. You know, it's okay. Car's going, but the landscape flies by. And it's pretty uneventful and pretty boring, actually. So, before we continue, so this is more for me than it's for you. Okay. It's very relaxing. I stole that from Headspace, actually. So breathe in and breathe out. So, you know, we've all come a very long way, baby. So this is a Fatboy Slim quote, didn't make it up. So I'm not saying, you know, throw it all out, let's pretend it's 1989, let's just, you know, nostalgia all in. That's definitely not what I came here to say, because it's 2026, I remember that. So, and on the UX design side, you know, we have like all of these things and much more. We do like continuous research, we have great accessibility standards, people hopefully all follow. We have usability heuristics and design system, and we use simple language, we experiment, we work together, we look, is it performant, we try to be inclusive, you know, we do rapid prototyping, we do journeys, and we do experience metrics, and we measure, and we also improve, and we do all of that. And yes, right? Yes to all of that. I think that's great for a lot of people. But also give it texture, right? That just don't make it so flat. So adapt it to your reality and your context, because that makes it real. And now this separative technical part, how to texture in 3 steps. So it's also 3 M's. I was like, that's good, should use 3 M's. So mission, mantras, and manifestation. So, but what does it mean, right? So, you know, let's start with missions. And that's kind of like, what's your story, right? Why is the product, the feature you're working on in the world? And what change do you want to evoke in the world, right? Why are you doing it? What do you care about? What are your values? And what do you want to transmit through your product or through your community? Because I work at Mozilla, you know, I put like this, the Mozilla mission here, and I use that as an example to illustrate it. So Mozilla's mission is to ensure the internet is a global public resource, open and accessible to all. An internet that really puts people first, and where individuals can shape their own experience, are empowered, safe, and independent. So that's great. I didn't write it. Someone wrote it a long time ago, so I could just take that one. And then we thought about, like, you know, how can we make that more actionable? Because it's a very long sentence. I can't even remember it. I have to read it. So we need to extract the important bits out of that. And so we ended up with this list, right? So keywords, it should be global and public and open and accessible and people first, and they can shape their own experience, and they are empowered, safe, and independent. And this is how we want Firefox to show up. So we went from this list to these mantras. You know, Firefox is crafted with care, it's delightful, and it's empowering. And what that means is, I should make more breaks, right? So, crafted with care is our baseline. That just refers to, we want to keep it open and accessible, and we put that deliberately front and center, because that's the foundation where everything is on top of. And delightful indicates that Firefox is warm, it's approachable, it's human, it's people first, it's designed by people, it's designed for people. And empowering makes sure people are in control. they can shape their own experience. They feel safe and protected, and they can customize how they want their browser to behave. And now, how does all of that manifest actually? So I'll just put focus purely on the visual. There was a pretty good talk earlier today about more the content side of things. So I would, if you haven't seen that, it was really good. I would recommend that. So now I want to talk about how to translate the mantras into a visual language, so typography, color, spacing, shapes, and so on. I will keep it more like high level. So let's start with typography, right? So let's look at all of that. Each of these tells its own story, right? These are all different types you can select. And each has their own personality. Some are more formal, some are more boring, like the first one. Some are more fun or serious, right? So Firefox, for example, uses this custom sans serif. It's very geometric, it feels very heavy and very confident and independent. And also it's very simple, but also distinct. And someone put a lot of care in that thing here. It wasn't me, but so that it comes across as empowering and confident as it needs to be. Colors, that's a big one. Don't be afraid of colors. I mean, saying the person wearing all black, but colors they're like a story. They help us to convey a mood. It's like it sets the tone. It tells the visual story. It's an indicator people get pretty quick. And you can use like more warm hues like red or orange to indicate or create a sense of also excitement, or you can use like more blues or greens if it should feel more calm and so on. So at Firefox we went all in on purple because we feel like purple speaks to the imagination, gives you a sense of protection. And so people feel empowered and can imagine, or feel free to imagine and explore. And then really quick, because I think I'm running out of time, spacing, right? So you can have like a bigger grid or a smaller grid if you are more like a utilitarian app or you have like a dashboard kind of thing. You want to reduce the space. Also shapes, right? Shapes are fun. I really like shapes. They create contrast, they break the grid, they draw a lot of attention. And then there is much more, right? This was just scratching the surface. But with all of these visual tools, being mindful about it, you create a sense of hierarchy, you create drama, you you guide attention, and you tell your story. Last but not least, icons, pictograms, similar to typography. This is just a bunch of different ones, and they all tell their own story. Oh yeah, and at Firefox, we just got this new mascot. It's called Kit, and it's kind of cute. So I couldn't, I want to just put it in there. And here is Kit saying goodbye, hopefully, and then jumping into the little, you can do it, yes, hole. And right, and then it's coming back, because it's a loop. But that's kind of like, so we're almost there. So, we looked at all those nice cafes and the airports, and we talked about science fiction and typography and colors and spacing. We saw Kit just a few minutes ago, and we relaxed, or I mainly relaxed somewhere in the middle. And we've all come a long way, right? So if I could have a wish, I would want us all to relax much more all the time. Don't watch that video on 2x. Just watch it in a normal time, and don't fall for the average. So give it texture, keep it fun. Maybe don't use that confetti, but create memorable moments. Just think about it. Break with the expectations. So challenge the default. Don't accept something because it's already there, or someone else thought it's a good idea. And I think this critical mindset creates tension, and tension creates friction, and friction is good, right? It makes space to create something new and maybe something better. Yeah, and I really love this word. So be deliberate, especially in these times. Think something through, slow and careful, intentional and planned, and yeah, go and write your own stories. Think about the values you care about, and then make them tangible and experienceable for everyone. Thank you.
Nicole Weber, everyone.
Thank you very much, Nicole, for your talk. I really enjoyed it. I had some fun. I was wondering when I saw the mission and what you, the next step was seeing what could be the mantra. And when I looked at it, I was thinking, oh yeah, I could do that with AI or so. But that's not what you did, right? So it's isn't it the other way around? You first have these keywords, and then you build the mission on the keywords.
Yeah.
Isn't that the way you do it? Not just having a mission and then drawing the keywords in order to have them for the mantra?
Maybe. I mean, in our case, the mission was already there, so that was not debatable, really. And then I think you have a good point that we could just throw it in AI and some average generic piece would come out. But I think the point here is that you gotta get everyone on board and make everyone believe in it, and you do that by just making everyone work on that and just use their little brains to just think that through and also have like this conversation and discussion. Why should we have crafted with care? Isn't that like how we work, right? That seems weird. Yes, but, right? And then you have this discussion. And then after, when you come out of that process, people are much more likely to know what it means when they just see one word because they have like the context. But I think, right, if you're starting from zero, you probably start with the words. You're like, oh, I feel like we are this, and then you make it bigger from there, right? Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
I've got a quite rebellious nature at the core. And for example, when we are designing in our startup, the brand identity, the website, and all of that, I wanted to go all in on being crazy, on being creative, and being like that weirdo, 80% of rebel. But on the other hand, I've got my team saying, hey, we're working with the public sector, we're working with the regulated industries. You cannot be rebel in there. You need to be boring. You need to be that plain white with some slight accent. You cannot be rebel. Hide yourself. So how to, marry, like being deliberate to our clients and to our reception, to our society, right, versus being true to our nature and expressing it in our, let's say, website or communication.
Yeah, it's a good one. I don't think it's not a binary. It's like either you're totally boring or you're totally off row, right? So I would just push it a little bit, right? Just make the space a bit bigger. Don't, also everybody wants boring. Yeah, why? Really? Or who said that? Is that really the case? I mean, I wouldn't subscribe to that everybody wants boring. I think it's a question of experimentation and then just seeing how far you can push it. And you push it every time just a little bit further, right? I don't know.
Yeah, so this is a question related to an immediate need of mine. I'm actually designing some slides for an upcoming presentation, and I'm wondering, and it sounds really cool, creating like a mission statement for the presentation and then coming up with a mantra and trying to manifest that. But do you have any more sort of practical advice for how you can kind of use these principles to create slides that'll stand out and create memories for people, and not just be the generic kind of,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the context. So first question, who's the audience? What do you want them to get out of that? And then you can see how far you can push it, right? Or also what makes you comfortable in the end, because it's your presentation. So I would start there, and then the rest kind of like falls maybe hopefully in place from that. But it's at least a start, right? And that's sometimes the most difficult thing. So thank you.
So we're keeping the flame alive.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think in FOSS, when we create stuff for like end users, not necessarily development tools or things like that, sometimes we are basically replacing a commercial tool. Like our first step is get to the same point where the commercial tool is. And then the question is, like, at which point should we think from the beginning about the texture? Because in the beginning, we are just trying to make a proof of concept or something, get adoption, and so on. So where do we start trying to put the texture in it? And do you have, like, good and bad examples in FOSS where you saw nice texture there versus very bland is maybe not getting adoption because it's bland or something, or because it's just a straight copy so people don't understand it.
Right. I mean, I work at Firefox, so I'm in the same boat, kind of, because we always, we have all these big competitors, and a browser is for most people a utilitarian app, right? They don't sometimes even know in which browser they are. And so we kind of learned over the years that yes, you need to have be, near the expectation that people have coming from one of the other browsers. But if you don't manage to stand out, they will forget you, right? Why should they stay around? So. I think kind of like yes to both. I totally get it that you need to match what's there, but don't match too much. And then you can think of if you have research is always great, or just talk to people, right? And then figure out what do they actually need, or what's something they don't get from the other tool. You don't even need to start building. You can just put them in front of the other thing and then be like, how is that going for you? And then learn from that, and then. Just small steps and see where you end up. Yeah.
Huge round of applause for Nicole Weber.